coming up in this episode.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the key to life and progress in general. I really think it comes down to that.
I really enjoy the idea that if you have any inclination towards something, then the first time you do it, you're going to suck at it, as with everything. And the second time, you'll kind of suck. But then over time, you can become good.
Seems like what I'm saying and what you're saying is this idea that our abilities don't stand out to us. And that would seem to imply that we are not different. We're not special compared to other people. And over time, you start to realize, oh, wow, I'm actually really good at this. And then maybe you feel a little bit more special, a little more unique. Hey, everybody, I'm Cody.
And I'm Evan,
Welcome back to Men's Search for Meaning.
the podcast where we explore concepts that we can all relate to and walk away with a deeper understanding of ourselves and what we think.
Okay, so the idea that I had today or for today was around talent. I was listening to a song by Billie Eilish, who is, someone that has become a household name recently. I think she's been around for a while and had been trying to, make a career work for a while. With how popular she is, there's a lot of strong opinions about her. And it just made me think about talent in general. I've watched some, interviews of her and her brother, and they've recorded some of their most popular songs just at home in their parents' house, in their room, basically, and which is kind of a cool thing because it makes you feel like you don't need to have, a giant recording studio or any of this kind of stuff to really make good music. So there's something nice about that. But it made me think about talent because, as I was picturing a person like this sitting in their home, and also she was young when her career started, and I was thinking, how does that develop for someone? Like, does it take someone telling you, oh, you're so good, you should try to make something out of this? Because I think a lot of people don't recognize the talent they have when they're younger. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It just sort of depends. And it also made me think about the outside looking in viewpoint of talent, where a lot of people think, oh man, if I could sing that good, I would be so famous as well. Or, oh, if I was only 7 feet tall, I would be making millions in the NBA or something. And it made me think about how talent is really only one piece of it. Her being talented has nothing to do with her being rich and famous and all that kind of stuff now, because had she just stayed sitting in her room singing to herself or making music for herself, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. So there's some aspect of, being discovered or somehow realizing, maybe I do have something here. And then where you go from there determines whether you're going to be successful with that or not, because there's a lot of hard work and follow through. And I don't think that's a common perspective that people have on talent. I think people think, oh, you got the talent, the door is open for you. And I think there's a lot more to that. There's a lot more work and follow through and drive and things that are required to make that kind of thing happen. So, kind of a few different angles there. I'm curious what you think about this topic. If you agree with that, if you disagree, if you have any thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. I think that a lot of people are confused about how to properly exploit your talent and what to do. Well, first of all, how to find your talent. I remember being in high school and college and just being like, I don't know what I'm good at. I mean, I guess I'm good at getting good grades. That's pretty much what was expected of me, but you don't really know your talents. I think in Billie Eilish's case, she had a bit of an easier time at getting to the point where someone would reflect to her that she was talented, because the thing that she's talented at, that we know about at least, is singing. And singing is one of the most popular talent related things in the world. Almost everybody appreciates singing.
Mm-hmm.
Playing basketball is, at least in the United States as well, because it's, I think, the most popular sport in the US. I could be wrong, maybe it's football. But so if you're talented at something that everybody values generally, or is widely valued, I should say, I think it's a bit easier for you. But where my mind goes is, what if your talent is not something easily recognizable? Um, so, for instance, one of my biggest talents in life is the ability to recognize what someone else who's listening or watching something really wants to see from me, and then giving that to them,
Hmm.
which comes from my childhood, having to be the middle child, the negotiator, how to please, my parents if they were upset about something that was very important to me with my specific childhood.
Mhm.
And so I fashioned it, but I bet I was born, just dumb luck with, the ability to do that and then needed to fashion it. And today, what I do for work really relies on that. I've, started a business basically around that idea, which, marketing business, you can exploit that idea properly.
Mhm.
So I think it's a crapshoot if you will actually have the opportunity to recognize what one of your great talents is. I think that's one of the hardest parts. That's just
Yeah.
one angle, but I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I appreciate that you mentioned the different aspects of human psychology as they relate to family and other things like that, because I think many people take for granted how our how the nuanced details of our upbringing affect us in so many ways. I mean, that sounds almost like I'm saying nothing because it's so broad and applies to so many things, but it really is true, and it really does factor in here as well, where if not to this isn't really about Billie Eilish. It's that was the access point to this concept, that made me start thinking about it. But to keep
But
using her as the example, if she had had very unsupportive parents who were like, "Ah, that doesn't sound very good. Will you cut that out or something?" Like she may have had a very different experience, even with the exact same level or degree of talent. So not only is there your follow through ability and discovering you have a talent, but there can be other factors that are impeding you from following through on that, based on how your family is. Those are things that can in your case help you fashion a skill, or they can be things that hold you back and make you doubt yourself or your other abilities. So it just points to what my instinct was here, which is it's more complicated than that. And that'll probably be a constant theme here because I really think that's true far more often than it's not true. But um, many people often have a more simplistic view of that, that I've mentioned a few times here, which is like, oh man, yeah, if I had that talent, I would be soaring. And I think it's a story we tell ourselves because then we feel like, oh, the reason I don't have those things is because I don't have that talent. But generally, if we're thinking about something that way, we're focusing on the skills that we don't have, and that being the reason for why we're not in the place we want to be, instead of looking at, okay, what are the skills that I do have? Because I think most people, maybe it takes them a long time to discover it. Most people have an above average skill at something because
Mhm.
everyone lived a very nuanced life. Everyone did different things. And as a result of that, I think skills are acquired, but it can be very difficult to figure out what those are, especially when we live in a society that values certain types of skills more than others. Like you said, she may have had an easier time getting off the ground with her talent because it's a talent that's so broadly recognized and broadly appreciated. Whereas other types of talents don't get that same kind of attention, which is why musicians and athletes can make so much money because these are talents that are so broadly appreciated. Whereas you can be an incredibly talented, I can't think of a good example of what would be a very niche talent, but you could be someone who's incredibly talented, whose skill just isn't that uh, isn't that well appreciated by.
Can I give examples are flowing to
Yeah,
pogo
please.
sticking, yo-yoing,
Yeah.
Scrabble,
Yeah,
minorly appreciated at party
yeah,
trick, but there's not money, there's not career in any of these things.
yeah, and it can take a lot of um effort to develop those skills. And yeah, just trying to point out that those could be exceptional talents that took not only some inherent ability but also a lot of work to develop, that just are not going to be appreciated the same way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's complicated. There seem to be a lot of aspects of our own um, friends and family interactions of early life, that set so many things in motion, but our ability to assess our skills and whatnot, um, are part of that as well.
Yeah. So I think there's different aspects of like how you would get off the ground with properly making use of your talent.
So
And I brought up one
can I
that,
interrupt you real quick? You're thinking of a
sure.
person who has a very specific talent already, and now what happens after that?
Yeah, and I'm kind of assuming that almost everybody has a talent.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
So there's the aspect of can you recognize it that I brought up? Like it is possible that I would have never recognized that. Like
Yeah,
and then do you get enough support? And I think you focused a little bit on that. You've been kind of meandering down that road a little bit in this conversation. Um, and just to kind of button up the first one, I think it's very interesting, especially when you're in high school. I always think of kids writing, high schoolers writing their college admission essay, and back when I used to help people with that, I'd
yeah,
always be like, "What's something you're extraordinarily good at, especially if it's niche?" And nobody had a good answer. It was very hard for them. I was like, "Wow, it was probably hard for me too." You don't know all that back then,
yeah.
and
Something I want to add to that real quick is
yeah,
we take for granted the things that we do, as especially our life experience, like what your family life is like. All these kinds of things are just how your life is, and I think it's extremely common to just assume that that's how it is for other people as well. That's just how life is, and it's part of the getting to know yourself better or your family better is just as time goes by, you start to realize, oh, that's not the case for everyone. This is significant. And I think that's when talents and skills are more noticeable. It takes that introspection, and for different people, that happens at different points in their lives. But I want to
that's
hear
a
where
good
you go
point.
with that getting off the ground thing. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, that's a very good point. I want to respond to that and I'll get back to it, which is
sure.
I think for everybody who ends up realizing that they want to make more use of this talent, they have to have that moment of seeing that not everybody can do that. I think
Yeah,
it's natural to assume everybody can do it if you can do it.
yeah,
And somebody has to be like, no, that's not normal. You're actually really good at that.
yeah.
Um,
Would you
and
say
I,
that we inherently think at a certain age, at a certain time, not that this is believed overall, that we aren't special, that we are just kind of like everyone else? I mean, maybe that word is reaching a little bit too far with it, but it seems like what I'm saying and what you're saying is this idea that our abilities don't stand out to us. And that would seem to imply that we are not different. We're not special compared to other people. And over time, you start to realize, oh, wow, I'm actually really good at this. And then maybe you feel a little bit more special, a little more unique.
yeah, I think I would say so. From what I can tell, it is not like a natural state of a child to be like, I am so different and special. I think parents have to tell them that, or maybe other people in authority, like a teacher.
Yeah.
I think you have to be told that. And then as you get older and your cognition develops a little bit more, you have to contrast it with the feedback that you receive, semi-consciously, let's say, like you're having a conversation and let's say you're very good at conversing or whatever.
Mhm.
You're good at speaking or articulating something. Like just notice, oh, people are kind of like, oh yeah, you put that very well, and they keep saying that. The feedback I'm getting is I'm good at articulation or something, just as an example. So yeah, you have to both hear it or either hear it from an authority figure in your life and then get it from social feedback. And then I think it concretizes into, oh, I'm talented. So yeah, if you don't mind, I have a question for you about that. Um,
Actually, I do mind. So continue.
in that case, I have nothing to say. I cede the authority. Uh, so one thing that I noticed that you're very good at is you're quick-witted, and that makes you funny. When we've been out socially, over the years, you can seize on a concept or wordplay or something and just find the funny wordplay in there where I'm like, I think I could have gotten there, but I don't know when. It would have taken me like an
Mm.
hour, whereas you just like come up with it. So you're clearly very good. That is one of your talents. Is that something, and I think I assumed, I'd never consciously thought this before. I think I assumed that you did not know that. It was just something you did. But
Yeah.
now I'm thinking you probably have known that for a while. So can you tell me about when you recognized that, if you have?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is a good example because it's more nuanced. And what we've been describing is kind of like we're trying to establish a concretized version of sort of how these things happen. And I think that maybe could be true for a majority of situations, but it's always more complicated. And I think this happens to be a more complicated example. So I think that's a good one to focus on. But it also, what you're asking specifically comes back to other things that we've mentioned, which are specific to family interactions. So something that's true about my mom's side of the family is humor is very highly regarded. And
Mm.
I can remember, my grandpa always trying to make me laugh and my uncle trying to make me laugh. And,
Mm.
it's just kind of a thing in the family. So I think I naturally took to it. The quick-witted side of things doesn't feel as much like a skill that can be developed. Maybe it can be. I don't really know. That feels like, something happening faster.
Yeah.
It feels like someone who's naturally runs faster than someone else. I don't know, maybe that can be developed, but it's not something that I, consciously attempted. I think it's something that felt really fun for me to do. So I wanted to try to do it, because of that being so common in my family. But you also mentioned the aspect of noticing when that was true and when that was when did I realize that about myself. That's the kind of thing that I can remember my mom always pointing out as well, which I think made me want to do it more. She'd be like, oh, you're so funny, or like, she'd be laughing, and then that, is fun as a kid, so then you
Mhm.
want to do more of that because you're getting great feedback. So yeah, it might be like what you mentioned of your skill to deliver on things that people are looking for, being something that you were born with to some degree and something that you also honed as part of what your family system valued, I guess. And this feels a lot like that. um, the the one thing I wanted to point out specifically with how you asked the question to me was, when did I recognize that? And I think this was a situation where I was told that a lot. So somehow I had the natural inclination to just think this was fun, and then it was reinforced from feedback that I was given,
Mm.
and now it's just something I really enjoy, where I can be having sort of a quiet contemplative day, and we'll then go to a family event, and then I'm making jokes, and it's kind of like come alive in that environment, and it's a lot of fun for me because it feels like a challenge or a way to it's like you have to look for humor. You don't want to put a ton of effort into it, but it is kind of like a fun challenge of like, can I make these people laugh, or how hard can I make people laugh? And I really
Mm.
enjoy doing that. You can see I'm even smiling as I talk about
Yeah,
it.
it's very wonderful to I'm very glad I asked that. It's also really interesting. When I hear that, I'm often struck by the contrast, with my own upbringing, where humor was not particularly valued. It wasn't
Mm,
not valued, but, um, I was a bit intrigued by your saying, "Well, I think I was just born with that. I don't know if you can really develop it." And I think I partly differ from you on that, or maybe you'd feel the same way if you hear my point of view, so let me try it.
yeah.
Um, I think that if your family like, you were born with some ability there. If your family was not humor-oriented,
Mm,
it is possible it wouldn't have awakened in quite the same way. Like, maybe it would have manifested in, like, a less funny way, you'd be quick-witted in some other
yeah.
context, in debate or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
That's a
I do.
wild concept to think about, because I do think that's true. Like, if you have, like you, when I hear you say this, I think of, movies or shows or other things that have existed where that kind of thing is true. Someone has an ability and their family is just squashing it out of them. Like maybe it's that cliche of a very gifted student born into a family that doesn't value education or reading,
Like
and they're
Matilda,
kind of
yeah.
trying to, crush it. Yeah, they're trying to crush it out of them. So I do think that it's possible that people can be born with above average abilities that just aren't fostered in the right way. And maybe a good analogy for this is like, if you take an acorn, from an oak tree, and you bury it in the sand in the desert, it has all the potential in that acorn to build an enormous tree, but the environment will simply not allow that to occur. And
Mhm.
so it's not the fault of the acorn itself. That's fully ready to go. It's got everything it needs, but the environment can really change whether a particular thing is able to thrive versus not. And I think while that's an example that is clearly in the natural world, we're talking about a very physical thing. I think it's absolutely true in the same way with abilities and whatnot in your family and friend situations, and it's kind of like what we decide to nurture versus abandon. And depending on the situations we're in, there might be a lot of pressure to make big decisions there.
Yeah. That's a great analogy, actually. And it brings up like a sub point, I think, of the fact that if your family didn't value humor, you would not be able to express it as easily. It would still be within you. The inborn part of you would still exist.
Yeah.
But there's something else I was thinking of earlier when you were talking about like, you know, if Billie Eilish was born into, I'm gonna guess that her family was encouraging of singing, given that her brother is very musical and obviously super talented since he it was her producer or
Hmm.
is her producer. Um, I'm gonna guess that she had the right environment and the talent, and then is a hard worker too. So she had like kind of the golden trifecta there.
Hmm.
But there's something else that could have prevented her from becoming a star and could prevent anyone from making use of their talent, which is if you have enough trauma in your life, or anything that makes you anxious or super insecure. I think that can also limit talent. Not trying to go in too dark of a direction, but I actually think it's widespread enough
Yeah.
that it's worthwhile. And for some reason, I'm thinking about there was this guy early in my career that wanted to write a book, and he told me about the concept of it. And it was about why some people cannot rise to success. Some people
Mm.
can't be successful. They even if someone's like, "Here's the winning lottery ticket," they'd be like, "I'm gonna crumple that up and throw it out. I don't want
Hmm.
anything to do with that." And I remember laughing, like, "What is this guy talking about? That is not true." Now I'm like, "Oh, that actually is true." You can, sort of have an experience that lives in your body and your mind, your subconscious, that prevents you from rising as high as you're capable of. And I think it
Mm.
is very common that that happens. So I think it's
Yeah.
possible Billie Eilish isn't Billie Eilish, even if she can sing amazingly, she can, compose, she's brilliant in all these ways that has made her famous. Her if her brain wasn't allowing her to do it, if there was something in her subconscious blocking her. So
Yeah.
just yet another element there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and that really points to what I was thinking of with this original idea, which is there's more to just having talent. It can mean things where you need to reach further, and you got to have drive and things that we think of as outward actions, but it also means you can't have things that are actively pushing you back too far, which certain degrees of trauma can do.
Right.
um, I think it's important to point out with that as well that no one escapes childhood unscathed entirely. So I think, just to clarify your point, you're talking about things that are heavier duty, because we've all got bad experiences and bad things that have happened to us. So I don't want to discount that from anyone, but I think you're talking about, like, she saw her, again, not talking about her, but someone sees their parents killed or something like that when they're young, and just like that can totally suck the air out of the room.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, glad you went so dark so quickly. I'd say even if they have a parent that like isn't present and when they are
Yeah,
present
yeah.
undermines them a lot, like that's
There's
an
more
example.
mild versions that can have a big impact. I just wanted to differentiate between this idea of trauma versus no trauma, because I think everyone has it, but what you're talking about
Right.
is varying degrees, and some can be much more significant and have a bigger impact on your ability to thrive, which is totally true. um, One element that I really feel compelled to mention and advocate for, and was the reason I really want to talk about this topic, which is how important it is to show up and do work. There's so many ways that this idea pervades that, oh man, if I just had this, I'd be good. Oh, if I was just taller, I would be killing it. If I have,
Mhm, mhm.
all these ways in which we tell us, I don't have what it takes to do what I need to do. And I think that one of the most incredible things about life, and even getting older, is realizing, here we are, this is what we got, what are we going to do with it? and not making those excuses of all the things that we don't have, but really trying to focus on what am I good at? What do I like doing? And putting in the work to develop those things. And maybe you don't become a superstar, but maybe most people wouldn't even be happy being a superstar anyways, where you can't even go out in public without being harassed. So I like connecting back to this idea that it's far better to focus on the things that we do have and the things that we can do instead of tell ourselves all these reasons why we can't do what we want to. There are some exceptions where if you're born without legs, you can't run a marathon maybe, but people have found ways. I think somebody has probably done that with full prosthetics and all kinds of stuff.
For
So
sure.
just trying to make the point that you know when people say you can do anything, I don't really believe that everyone can do anything, but I think we can do far more than we think we can, and we generally limit ourselves a lot more because we tell ourselves these stories of like, yeah, I'm just not as good a singer as Billie Eilish. I won't be able to have what she has, and it's like maybe you don't need to have what she has. You can still develop your craft, and you might surprise yourself what you can accomplish. So, just wanted to mention that, not to get overly sappy with it or anything, but I think that's a really important thing to recognize. um and yeah, does that ring any bells for you?
Yeah. Once again, there's two directions that are like both really interesting for me. I'll pick one. First, I think a lot of younger people uh, get it in their head that they want to be as successful as like an list celebrity in
Yeah,
some domain, sports or
they
music.
set their sights very high.
Yeah, for some reason that is the main goal.
Hmm.
And we know it's not realistic, of course, statistically, but
Hmm.
I would say it is not properly understood what being, let's say, 50% above average. So I don't know, like a 7 out of 10 good at something,
Hmm.
well below any professional sports player, can do, depending on what it is. If it's business, you can be a multimillionaire being 7 out of 10 good at business, let's say. And I could
Yeah.
define what comprises being good at business,
Yeah.
but that's, I think, is tangent. Um, a lot of things. You don't have to be, this pinnacle of talent. Obviously,
Hmm.
if you are, then you can play at the highest level, be a celebrity, all these things, and that's exciting, of course. But I think a lot of people are seeking tremendous attention and fame and fortune, but that is not just rare, but probably not a recipe for a good life. I mean,
and I
you mentioned it before,
yeah, and
like
I honestly think that the I don't know what majority, but a majority of people who feel like they want that would not be happy in that situation. Like
yeah,
we really idealize what that lifestyle is like, and I think there's so many negative things that we don't see or don't even let ourselves see because we're just like, oh, they got money. What problems could they have? Or like, oh, so hard to be famous. But it's like everybody's got problems, and you don't know what someone's life is like. So we often yearn for things that I think we we wouldn't even necessarily like that much if we had them, or maybe it would just wouldn't make the difference we think it would at the very least.
yeah. I agree. It's a little besides the point, but I'll just end that point by saying I think a very specific type of person who absolutely loves attention and is highly, highly extroverted would enjoy being a celebrity. But
Mm.
even then, you see what their relationships tend not to work out, and they're constantly criticized and scrutinized, especially in the age of social media. So
Oh
I
yeah.
agree, and I think having an above average life, let's say for you,
Yeah.
is underrated because that may be your route to the greatest happiness, meaning, peace, whatever the components of a high quality life are for you. That
Hmm.
may be your route is not having all the pressure or expectations or spotlight on you of being at
Hmm.
the very pinnacle of anything,
Hmm.
but being good at one or a small number of things and
Yeah.
having that above average. Then you can focus on the other stuff. You don't have
Yeah.
to.
I
Yeah.
think this what I'm about to say will quickly turn into a subject for another time, but
Sure.
empowerment in that sense, I think it's such a positive word, empowerment. But I think it can be an overwhelming concept because it's like, what do you mean I have everything I need right now to do what I want to do? There's something like it's so common to be like, I'm not this, I'm not that, I didn't have this, I don't have that. And I'm not saying that isn't hard and that I don't relate with that as well, but there is something that is good about like, all right, well, what can you do? You know, like if this is what you have, what can you do with it? And that can be overwhelming because it's like, I'm not ready for this. You know, that can kind of point to maybe other issues, to say it plainly, that need to be addressed. But I'm a big believer in like have as accurate of a view of the situation as you can, and then see what you can do with that. You know, we often try to avoid looking at so many different things, but they don't go anywhere, and ultimately it's not helping us. It's hard to do it the other way and to really like take life by the reins, so to speak. And not to say that I'm a great example of that, but I do believe in that idea, and maybe that's part of a chapter I'm in right now, is really taking ownership of that, and focusing on, okay, well, what can be done.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I just want to really drive that concept into this conversation, because I think if these discussions can help anyone at all, or open up ideas, that would be the best outcome I can imagine. So I always like to try to think of those opportunities, when we have them in these conversations. So that, for me, for this conversation, that's the main point that I would like to share with other people who might be in a position where they're like, I got a shit hand here that I have to deal with. And it's like, all right, well, what can you do with it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's very true, and what it's making me think about is something that's become my latest, obsession, which is a pretty random thing to become obsessed with, but it's slow, continuous improvement.
Hmm.
I just really enjoy the idea
Boo. No.
that I really enjoy the idea that, if you have any inclination towards something, then the first time you do it, you're gonna suck at it, as with everything, and the second time you'll kinda suck, but then over time, you can become good, just by continuing to do it, and then especially if you're able to recognize areas of improvement and then put work in towards in those areas, you can become highly competent at something just by putting in the time and continuing to focus on it and hopefully reflecting on it, spending some time thinking about it. What could I do differently? If
Mhm.
there's one part that I'm not doing well, what's the root cause of that and how can I address that? If you have that attitude, it can be a lot of fun to just keep getting a little bit better at something until you're damn good at it.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the key to life and progress in general. I really think it comes down to that. It took me a long time to learn, because, similar to the idea of people idolizing the most extreme examples in a case, of like your favorite basketball player is the arguably the best basketball player, that's such a common thing, to really shoot for these kind of above and beyond goals. But the like those people got to that position over long periods of time with consistent effort. It's like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym once a month and have an insane workout and think you're going to have the same results as someone who goes 3 to 5 days a week and does a manageable amount of work over time. So that concept of slow and steady progress, I think, is extremely powerful. uh, it feels very unsatisfying in a lot of cases, because it feels like you're going slower. Are you even moving at all? But that is
Mhm.
how all successful people have reached the positions that they've gotten. Maybe there's exceptions where they've had a massive windfall and then they've invested it or something, but the vast majority of people who are in positions that many of us would like to be in are there as a result of very small but consistent effort.
Mhm.
Tortoise in the hare.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right, can you take some pleasure in it? I feel like I've arrived at the stage of life where I can, that's why I was saying that I'm so interested in it. I've started to do this with playing tennis, like, I haven't really played much tennis in my life, but it's freezing cold here right now in the winter, and so there's not too much that you can do outdoors as far as a sport. So, I started, going to this indoor tennis place, and first time I played, I was just like, "Yeah, I have some natural talent, but I can't even figure out how to properly hit it. I keep hitting the net." And then, I've now done it like 4 times, and I just love seeing that I have figured out, muscularly or whatever, or, whatever the connection with my brain and my muscles, how to how to hit it in a way that it goes over, like, 90% of the time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh my god, I can not have so many unforced errors." And
Yeah.
I'm beginning to see how I can hit it into a certain position, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is good." I don't know
Yeah.
how good I'll get ultimately, but I love seeing improvement. It's so much fun, and I'm okay with sucking at first, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of that.
Yep, that's something to be proud of because that is the hard part, and that's what stops a lot of people from pursuing things is being just garbage to start and being like, "This is okay. I will get better." That's
Yeah.
almost unbearable for many people, including myself. I can relate to that as well. So,
Mm.
yeah. Any closing thoughts before we get to our new segment here, Facebook finds that we're happy to share with everyone?
Oh, I can't wait to get to that segment. So, no, I have no closing thoughts.
All right. Well, as far as this conversation goes, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you guys on anything and everything you want to share, whether it be things related to this, the format, the length, your thoughts on any subjects mentioned throughout, your ideas for future videos. We'd love to hear that as well. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from us. And lastly, click that bell icon if you want to be notified when we upload. All these things will be really helpful for growing this channel, and we really hope to bring many more exciting, thought-provoking conversations to you guys, and to hear what you all have to say as well. All right, now for Facebook finds.
It's time for Facebook finds.
All right, so our first Facebook find. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, check it out.
What the hell is this?
Here we have a moose turd on a stool. Only $10.
Why? I'm just so confused. Why would somebody be selling a piece of shit on a stool?
There's no context. If you go to the description, it's just moose turd stool sample from Turdy Works.
Oh, because it's stool on a stool? Is
I
it supposed to be
guess.
funny? Okay.
They want someone to buy this, so I mean, I can't imagine this being anything other than something that's funny, but I truly do not understand what purpose this serves or why this is a thing. But moose turd on a stool ships for only $4.50, so you don't even have to be in the area if you want to pick this up for yourself.
Wow. Um, I'm gonna guess that this is like for people that really enjoy puns and they can, because it says it's a stool sample. But can you imagine having that on display in your house and someone's like, what is that? And then you're like, it's a stool sample.
But it's like a
You're like,
dad joke kind of thing
right,
where you're like, "Oh, what's that? It's a stool sample."
exactly. Like it would
But
just get the most lame response. It would just be like,
but
oh,
actually having a piece of feces on display in your home, even for the joke purpose, is beyond me. All right,
quite disgusting looking, yes.
you ready for the next one?
Ugh, I think so. I hope it doesn't
So
involve poop.
there's only one poop related item today. So
Okay.
this one comes in at a much higher price tag. So
What is this?
when you're ready,
Oh my God. So it's a rug
yeah.
that
How much is the rug?
it's $5,000.
What do you
Uh,
see on the rug?
just three people dressed up. Like, I don't know who those people are. Just imagine just three random people on a rug in your house, and you pay $5,000 for that.
They don't even look like real people. They look like AI generated people. Like I imagine it's very hard to make a realistic image of a person in a rug format,
Yeah, yeah.
but what a ridiculous job. I love if you go to the second picture, their attempt to show the impressive detail and it just looks all blurry and terrible.
I mean, it has been impressive for a rug. Uh, I'm just picturing like how you would incorporate this into the interior design of your house.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
what room would just basically like a photograph in rug format of three people in formal wear just look good? It's like
Yeah,
a very jarring thing to see on the floor.
it is strange. Who are the people? I want to know. I mean, maybe if you're Persian, this is like some of their royalty with, I imagine this has to be like a royal family of some sorts, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's just beyond me. And with the price tag of $5,000, what is the chance that someone buys this?
I don't know. I mean, it must have taken a long time for this to be made, given that it's basically
Yeah.
a photograph on a rug.
All right. So next up, we have a real beauty for you here.
Okay.
The highest price tag you're gonna see today,
It's higher than the rug.
significantly.
Oh, on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh man, there is wild stuff on Facebook Marketplace. You can buy
What the-
boats.
Somebody's selling their grocery store on Facebook Marketplace.
Read the description.
It's a Middle Eastern seasoning store.
Our store has different types of seasoning and items that are from Middle East. It also has a kitchen that is halfway done.
Didn't even get to the last part. So you can inherit a project where you have to
Yes,
finish building a kitchen.
yes. And items with expiration dates, who knows how soon or if they're already expired. Like they have refrigerated items here. Like if you want to purchase this, you've got expiring inventory that you have to deal with.
You better hit the ground running.
You better hit the ground
Uh,
running, yes. But they do have, it looks like a very rudimentary coffee machine and just endless amounts of spices.
Wow.
So only 100, only 110 grand. Doesn't say what the shipping cost is, so I have to assume that shipping is free.
And the condition is used like new.
Yeah.
What an
All right.
inappropriate
Actually, I stand
place.
corrected. This is the most expensive item here.
What?
Yeah, I don't believe the price, but it is technically the most expensive item, but it is quite delightful.
Okay, let me see this. This is the most expensive item?
One
I haven't clicked
million
on it.
$111,111.
Wait, what is this? It is a bunch of naked dolls.
with the genitalia.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
if we can show this on YouTube, but maybe we'll have to put a bunch of blurred out spots, but they all have tiny baby you know what's on them. And apparently in the description, she's very adamant that these are some sort of official, they're all Sunny's UFS. Keep in mind that I did toss all the packaging, so you would only be getting the SA. All have been purchased through SA official site or bought from local stores that carry them. Prices listed below. So
Pick up an SJ.
yeah, is this something you'd like to add to your home decor?
Absolutely. The
Can you
next time an
imagine?
SJ.
Can you imagine going into someone's home and they just have a ton of these on display?
I would think it's very weird, but if I learned they paid $1.1 million for it, I would
It's funny how
be
that can
young.
change it. Well, if you scroll down to the prices, they're all like $10 to $18
You think
with
this
really
person
weird
doesn't
names.
like? You think maybe they just don't know how money works? Like if you add up a bunch of $10 to $18 items, that doesn't equal 1,111,000.
They're hoping that you're just gonna go for the package deal. Emphasis on package. All right. Last item
What?
here,
Okay.
and then we'll wrap up for today. Didn't know this existed.
Oh, a lactation massager.
10 bucks. This
For
worked
$10.
wonders. This worked wonders when needed. A must have.
A must-have.
The best part about this for me is just the degree of lint and hair that is stuck all over this.
Yeah, they really
That's
focus in on that hair. You can see how dirty that lactation massage. I'm gonna guess that when you're, having your boob massaged so that you could get more milk out, you probably don't want cat hair on it. Probably
looks
not
like
ideal.
they use this, threw it under the bed, and then they're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get some good money for this." But it's really hard for me to imagine that this is an item that's going to sell anytime soon. Mainly because they're not willing to ship. This is a local sale only.
Oh, they will not put that in a package because
No.
it has to be seen to be believed. You've got to
It
be
does, yes. They want you to see the hair and still be willing to purchase it.
It's so dirty. Why do they take such a close-up picture if there's gonna be cat hair on it? They didn't think of taking a paper towel and wiping it?
Ugh, apparently not. It looks like something that would be waterproof that you could just wash off in between,
Yeah.
but they're like, nope, we're just going to take a picture covered in hair and dust. Someone's going to want this item that's been massaging my breasts. All right. If you enjoyed the Facebook finds little closer here, let us know. As much as we enjoy talking about these bigger subjects, which we absolutely do, humor and levity is really important for both of us as well. So we thought this could be a fun idea to close out the episodes, focus on some treasures that we found in our local communities, and just share some laughs with you guys after we had a bigger conversation about a lot more things relating to life. So let us know what you think about everything and everything. Once again, if you haven't hit the like button or subscribed, do so, and we'll keep delivering as good of videos as we can. So thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you soon.